and of course you. Welcome and welcome, or welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Christina and I make ASMR videos. If you do not like true crime ASMR stories, I have just uploaded a girl in the classroom roleplay. It's called The Girl in the Classroom is Doing Your Makeup, so maybe you might like that one. So it's Sunday evening here, quite late in the evening, and of course it's time for another true crime story, true crime ASMR story. But before I begin, I hate saying this, I don't like saying this, but I have to, as YouTube's algorithm is acting up all the time. So I need to remind you to drop a like, of course, if you want to. And if you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing so that you can help my channel grow. Thank you, thank you, thank you very much. Today's story is a very tragic, extremely dramatic one, and I generally try to avoid graphic details because it is ASMR and my videos are supposed to relax you, so I avoid graphic details and try to focus on the story and on the investigation. But this time I have to warn you that this story is tragic and a little bit graphic because it's the story about a mother and about two little angels who lost their lives. Two little angels whose lives were taken away, and about a mother who is on death row being accused of killing her own sons. I'm more than sure that you have heard about this because back then in 1996 this was a media circus. I'm talking about Darlie Routier. And I have to tell you from the start that I tend to believe that she is innocent. Maybe I'm subjective, maybe I'm naive. When I first watched the documentary about her, I don't remember. It was many years ago and I don't remember exactly the name of that documentary, but back then I was convinced that she was to blame for this, that she was where she belonged to. But I have recently watched and I also have read a lot of articles guys, and let's listen to Darlie's tragic story. Darlie Lynn Routier, that's her full name, was born on the 4th of January 1970 in Texas. She was and she is a very attractive woman, and when this tragedy struck in 1996, she was living together with her husband, Darlie Routier, and their 3 children. They were living the American dream. They had a nice house in a fancy neighborhood, and everything seemed to be okay. Darren was working with Darlie's mother when he jokingly told Darlie's mother that he heard she had a very beautiful daughter, and the mother admitted that she really had an extremely beautiful daughter. And when he met her for real, he was absolutely struck by love. He person that everyone in the neighborhood loved and admired. You know, that kind of American mother who cooks, bakes, and whose life involves around her children. So they had a very good life, and they were living the American dream. Everyone says that when this happened, when this tragedy struck, they were having perfect marriage, 3 wonderful boys, nice house, a business, and there were of course some problems, but nothing extremely worrying. Okay, so I try to be objective because I know that I tend to become subjective, being influenced by the latest videos that I have watched on this topic. So I try to stay objective, I promise, and present you both sides. I'll let you decide. And please let me know what you think about this. On June 6, 1996, in the evening, as they had just bought a new TV for the living room, the young mother decided to spend the evening in front of the TV together with her older boys. Her husband, Aaron, and the baby boy were both upstairs. And we have a normal evening. A mother is watching TV together with her boys. There are some jewelry pieces on the counter in the kitchen, and it was said that maybe those pieces of jewelry might have been attracted an intruder. I don't know, it might be. The thing is that a desperate 911 call was placed at 2:31 a.m. It was Darlie, who told the operator that her home had been broken in and that an intruder had stabbed her boys. They were 6 years old and Damon 5 years old, and that the intruder had also cut her throat. I'm sorry for the graphic details. Darlie remained on the phone for about, I knife, and the dispatcher told her not to touch anything, and she felt the need to tell that she had already touched that knife. Police arrived in 3 minutes. They discovered a window screen in the garage that had been cut, which was the indication for possible entry of an intruder. They searched the house and around the house, and they couldn't find any intruder. And the police allowed the paramedics to come and offer assistance to the victims. Darlene told the police that the intruder escaped through the garage, and she also told them that at a certain point she had followed him to the technical room. Investigators couldn't find any evidence in the garage. There were no blood drops, and the window sill in the garage had the dust on it was untouched, including that window that had been previously cut. And they decided that no one could have actually climbed through it because everything seemed to be undisturbed, including the flower beds between the garage and the backyard gate. They could find a single unknown fingerprint on the windowsill that did not belong to anyone in the family. And 70 yards away from the house, they also found a bloody sock, which was tested, of course. And the lab test revealed that it had blood from both the boys on it. Damon and Davon were stabbed to death with a large kitchen knife belonging to the Routiers, and Darlie had very bad knife wounds to her throat and arm. Of course, the boys' wounds were fatal, and Darlie's wounds had been described as superficial, but still, they came within 2 millimeters of her carotid artery. Darlie was treated at the hospital and released, and she was released 2 days later. The baby boy, their youngest son, 7-month-old Drake, was asleep, as I have told you, upstairs with her husband therein, and both of them got away. Both of them were unharmed, and the police from the very start considered her the main suspect, so they couldn't find any intruder. They couldn't find too much evidence. Nothing was stolen. There was only a broken wine glass on the floor. The knife used belonged to the Routiers, and for the police seemed extremely strange the idea that a person enters a house without a knife, just like so, and uses the knife from the kitchen drawer. This seemed very strange for them, and also the fact that the intruder cut that window, that an intruder cut the window screen with a knife, enters the house, and she needed another knife to commit those murders. That was indeed a little bit strange. Nothing was stolen. Darlie told the police that she had fallen asleep on the couch with her two boys while they were watching TV, and she was waken up later by an unknown man in her house. She told them that she confronted him, and the man fled, dropping the knife in a utility room. And she picked up the knife and tried to chase him away. Darlie said that she realized that her boys had been wounded, and that she was also wounded, and she called 911. And the police found highly suspicious the fact that she and her sons had been severely wounded, and she couldn't be waken up until after the attack had occurred. So she couldn't hear anything while it was happening. She woke up after everything had already occurred, and as I've told you, she was considered to be the main suspect from the start. And now that order to support their case, and they were not interested in any other lead. They didn't care about any other suspect. At a certain point, the Routiers, together with their other family members, all held a birthday party at the boy's grave to celebrate David's 7th birthday. So David's birthday was supposed to be the following week, and Darlie told everyone that she was in the middle of organizing his birthday party and that the invitations had already been sent. This is extremely, extremely sad. And they had this birthday party at the boy's grave, and that was her biggest mistake, I think. But I don't know, we react differently to pain, being this pain physical or spiritual. I remember that when my father was sick and I was suffering so much, I used to burst into laughter, and then I started, right after I started crying, I was very vulnerable and reacted in a way in which I couldn't recognize myself. But I was suffering so deeply and still. So they organized to go back to the birthday Boston birthday party. It said that it was organized by Darlie's sister, who came with the idea to spray silly string on the babies, on the boys' graves. They had balloons, and Darlie was filmed smiling, laughing, spraying silly string, chewing gum, and singing happy birthday. And everyone who saw that video on TV just accused her. Everyone was sure that she was the author, because we cannot imagine that a mother is able to act like this right after she has lost her children. But it is also said that the media took that little film out of a bigger context, that they had previously held a proper ceremony where everyone cried, and it was a very emotional one, but the media was not interested in presenting that aspect. They were interested in this wasn't herself. She explained this by telling that in fact it was not her idea, and that she wanted for a moment to forget about what really happened and try to imagine that her boys were still alive and that they brought to them for the boys' birthday the things they loved. She told everyone that they loved spraying silly string, they loved balloons. And after seeing this video, after they had seen this video, the police arrested Darlie Routier 4 days later, on June 18th. She was called and she was announced to come for in order to give them some further info, and she came without a lawyer because she didn't suspect anything. I don't know, maybe you know the metaphor of the crocust's bed, we cut off what doesn't fit to that bed. We try to fit everything in boxes. We try to adjust ourselves in order to fit in different boxes, but we don't try to adjust the boxes in order to be suitable for us. How could we apply a general pattern and decide how a mother or any other person should crave or act in a certain situation? How? We're not same. We act differently. But this doesn't mean that deep inside we're not suffering. There are people who cannot cry. There are people who cry too much and easily, but there's nothing behind their tears. They're empty tears. No, I'm not defending her. I'm just saying that cannot judge people superficially. We need to accuse someone of something based on facts and evidence. Of course, Darlie commented on the video, saying that her son wanted to be 7 and that she did that in order to honor him and wish him a happy birthday. How do you know how you are going to act? How? Well, police decided that she was guilty. There's a plane in the sky. considered that Darlie's wounds were self-inflicted, that she, in that very little time, she was on the phone with the dispatcher that night, and she had also time to go and cut the window screen, to go around and place that sock in the yard. And also, and all this while she was wounded, she was bleeding. Of course, the trial was a media circus, as it always happens to this kind of trials. Trial began on January 6, 1997 in Kerrville, Texas. She was accused of taking the life of her two sons because she had financial difficulties. They were 2 months behind with the mortgage, but if you think a little bit, I think that in every family at a certain point happened to be behind a little bit with a mortgage. It's not so worrying, but she was described as a materialistic woman, superficial, depressed because they found her diary, and they also decided that she was depressed and that she was afraid that her lifestyle was about to end. And the silly string video was presented to the jurors at that very part, not all the footage, just extracted from the contest, that very part, the part where Darlie was laughing, smiling, spraying silly string and chewing gum. And the jurors were immediately sure that she was guilty. She was accused of staging the crime scene inside the Routier's house. They even found a motive, and that was the insurance policy on both of the boys. But the defense said that the insurance amounted to only $10,000, and it was not enough to cover funeral expenses. The defense also said that if she was willing to murder for money, she would have killed her husband, who had a huge life insurance policy. So the defense said that there was no reason for her medical examiner testified that the wound to her neck was 2 millimeters of her carotid artery, and it was not consistent with the self-inflicted wounds he had seen in the past. But the jurors had never been showed the photos of Darlie in hospital. They had never seen photos of these wounds, which were extremely severe. And other physicians testified that the wounds might have been self-inflicted. And analyzing the blood and the way it spread around, blood spreader, the detectives testified that she had raised the knife over her head to do the horrible act. Now the sock found outside the house. They also said that it was planted by Darlie, and when the paramedics arrived, Damon was still alive, and the medical examiner testified that the boy could only have survived about 8 minutes after receiving his injuries. And as I have told you in the beginning, Darlie was on the phone almost 5 to 6 minutes, so there was not enough time left for Darlie to go to stage the crime scene, to place the sock, to cut herself and return before the paramedics arrived. But they didn't want to see this. They were focused on what they wanted to believe. So, and they decided that Darlie could have planted the sock before self-inflicting her own injuries. And they also said that she took the pictures of the wounds after she had been released from hospital. So on February 1st, Darlie was convicted of murdering Damon. She was sentenced to death on February 4, and she has been on the death row since 4th of February 1996. Numerous appeals were made these years. In June 2008, Darlie was granted the right to a new DNA test. Her peers were remanded to the state level for improved DNA testing. On January 29, 2014, the judge of Western District granted accepted a request from both prosecution and defense for her case for further DNA test vital to the defense to be performed on a bloody fingerprint found in the house, a bloody sock and her nightgown. In 2018 it was ordered the third round of DNA testing. So there are a lot of people who believe that she is innocent and fight for her, and there are also a lot of them who think that she is where she belongs. Another thing that is haunting me is the husband, Darlie Routier, who meanwhile filed for divorce in June 2011, and they're divorced right now. Although he had always believed and said that his wife is innocent, I find suspicious the fact that the police have never looked into the possibility of considering him a suspect. I don't know, it's really strange. Maybe she might have hired someone to get into the house. Of course, for financial purposes. I don't know, just saying. Why considering Darlie the main suspect just because of a silly video? So, this was my story for tonight. Please let me know in the comments below what you think about this case, and if you have suggestions for new cases,